I work from home 3 days a week. That matters, because it means I know my apartment better than most people know any place they have ever lived. I know exactly what sound the radiator makes when the heat kicks on at 6 in the evening. I know which floorboard in the hallway sets off that low creak and exactly how much pressure it takes to do it. I know which cabinet door needs 2 firm pushes to stay shut. I know the particular smell of the air in the morning before I open the windows. I know this apartment the way you only know a place after 4 solid years of living in it alone. Every sound, every quirk, every small thing that belongs and every small thing that doesn't. That is exactly why, on a Tuesday afternoon in February, I knew something was wrong before I could even name what it was. It started with a coffee mug. I had left one on the counter that morning. I am completely sure of that. I set it down right next to the sink before my 10 o'clock work call and told myself I would wash it after. I didn't. I went straight to my desk, sat down, took the call, and worked through lunch without getting up once. When I finally walked back into the kitchen around 2 in the afternoon, the mug was on the other side of the counter, not in the sink, not broken, not knocked over, just moved, maybe 8 inches to the left, sitting there like it had always been there. I stood and looked at it for a long time. My first thought was practical. I must have moved it without thinking. People do that. You walk through a room, your hand brushes something, your brain doesn't bother logging it. I made a fresh cup of coffee. I went back to my desk. I kept working. I did not think about the mug again until the closet. My bedroom closet has a sliding door. It needs a firm push all the way to the left to stay fully closed. If you don't push it hard enough, it drifts back about 2 inches and stays there. I have had that problem for years. My routine every morning is to slam it shut when I get dressed, hard enough that it holds for the rest of the day. When I walked into the bedroom at around 5 in the afternoon to change out of my work clothes, the closet door was open. Not drifted, not 2 inches. Fully open. Almost 2 feet of dark space between the door and the frame. I walked over to it slowly. I looked inside. Clothes hanging in a row, shoes on the floor, my gym bag sitting in the corner exactly where I left it. Everything looked right. I slid the door shut and pressed it hard and walked away. But something had changed inside me, something small and quiet, like a switch that had been flipped and couldn't be switched back. I started noticing everything. The bathroom door was halfway closed. I always leave it wide open during the day, and I knew that. The blinds on my back window, the one that faces the alley, were angled differently than I remembered setting them. Not dramatically, just slightly. The kind of difference that registers as wrong, but that you can't immediately explain to yourself or to anyone else. I tried to dismiss it. I made dinner. I ate it standing at the kitchen counter, which I never do. I kept looking at the hallway, that long dark strip between the kitchen and the back of the apartment. I don't know what I was looking for. There was nothing visible, but I could not stop looking. At 7:24 in the evening, I heard a sound come from the direction of the bathroom. It was not loud. It was not a bang or a crash. It was a low, soft sound. The kind of sound that weight makes on a hard floor when it shifts slowly, like the ball of a foot pressing down and then lifting. Just once. The bathroom is at the back of the apartment. The door was halfway closed. I had not been in there since 3 in the afternoon. I did not move. I stood at the kitchen counter and I did not breathe. I waited for the sound to happen again. The apartment went completely still. The radiator had stopped. No cars outside. Nothing from the floor above me. Just me and the memory of a sound that was already starting to feel like maybe I had imagined it, but which I knew I had not imagined. My phone was sitting on my desk, 10 feet across the living room. I covered that distance in 8 steps, picked the phone up, and pressed my back flat against the wall beside the front door. I called 911. When the dispatcher answered, I kept my voice low. I gave my address. I told her I thought someone might be inside my apartment. She told me to stay on the line. She told me not to go near any closed doors or rooms. She told me units were coming. I stood against that wall for 11 minutes. Then I heard it again. Louder this time. Not from the bathroom, from the bedroom. My bedroom door, which I had not closed, was now closed. One flat sound from behind it, dull and wooden, like someone bumped something solid with their knee in the dark while trying very hard to stay still. My hand found the door handle behind me without me deciding to reach for it. I turned it. I stepped out into the building hallway. I pulled my front door shut behind me. I stood on the cold tile floor in my socks and I breathed. The police came a few minutes later. 2 officers. They went in with flashlights. I stood in the corridor and watched the light move under the gap at the bottom of my door, and I counted seconds and waited. They found him in the bedroom. A man in his mid-30s. He had come in through the back window during my morning work call. The window I thought I had latched. The latch I had never actually pressed all the way down. He had been inside my apartment for over 6 hours. He had gone through my things. My wallet on the nightstand was empty. My laptop was gone from my bag in the corner of the bedroom. When they walked him out in handcuffs, he passed right by me in the hallway. He looked at the floor the entire time. He did not look at me once. The detective who took my statement told me this man had a record stretching back 4 years. Multiple break-ins across the same part of the city. Always in the afternoon. Always in buildings he had spent time watching first. He learned schedules. He planned around them. He was patient. He did not rush. He had believed I left every morning at 8 and came back around 6. He had no way of knowing I had changed my schedule that month to work from home 3 days a week. What I keep coming back to is not the robbery. It is not the 6 hours. It is the mug. Because that means the first thing he did after climbing through my window was walk into my kitchen. He moved through my apartment. He touched my things. He was not pressed into a corner somewhere waiting for dark. He was walking around the space in the afternoon light with the kind of ease that only comes from having done this many times before. He was comfortable. He was calm. He was somewhere he had decided was already his. That kind of comfort does not come from one apartment. That kind of comfort is practiced, which means other people, other places, other tenants who came home and noticed nothing, or maybe noticed something small and brushed it off, a chair not quite where they left it, a door slightly more open than they remembered, a mug on the wrong side of the counter. He had 6 hours and he used every minute of them, and if I had not changed my work schedule that month, he would have been gone long before I ever walked through the door. She'd only been in the house for 2 weeks when it happened. It was a rental. A small 2-bedroom in a quiet town in Ohio. The kind of neighborhood where the yards are wide and the garages are detached, and people wave from their driveways but never quite stop walking long enough to actually talk. She had moved there after a job change. She didn't know anyone in the area. She had furniture she had put together herself on the living room floor. She had boxes she hadn't fully unpacked. She had a Wi-Fi router that took 2 calls to get working properly. She was still in the phase of learning the house, the way the kitchen light buzzed for a few seconds before it came on all the way the back door needed to be lifted slightly while you turned the key, the way the heating vents clicked for about 10 minutes every morning when the furnace first started up. She was still absorbing the small details of a new place, still building the mental map that tells you when something doesn't fit. It was a Saturday evening in September, around 7 o'clock. She was on the couch folding laundry with the television on low in the background. A home renovation show she wasn't really watching, just noise to fill the room. The curtains on the front window were drawn. The porch light was on because she still hadn't figured out which switch controlled it, and she had just left it burning. The knock came at 8:12 in the evening. 2 knocks, firm and slow, spaced out deliberately, not frantic, not rushed, completely controlled. The kind of knock that sounds like it belongs on that door, like whoever was doing it had stood on that porch and knocked just like that many times before. She set down the shirt she was folding. She looked toward the front door. She wasn't expecting anyone. She hadn't ordered anything. She didn't know a single person on that street. She sat still and waited. The second set of knocks followed. 3 this time. A little louder. Still slow. Still patient. She got up and walked to the door. She looked through the peephole. The porch light was on, which should have helped, but the man outside was standing slightly to the side, not directly in front of the door, just off center like he didn't want to be seen straight on. She could make out a dark jacket, short hair. He was looking down at the porch floor. She couldn't see his face clearly. She did not open the door. She spoke through it and asked who was there. He gave the name of the woman who had lived in the house before her. He said he was a friend. He said she had asked him to come by and pick something up. She felt something shift in her chest then. Not full alarm, just a small cold settling of unease. She told him through the door that she was the new tenant, that the previous occupant had already moved out, that she didn't have any of her belongings. He was quiet for a moment, then he said he understood. He apologized and said that explained everything. He said thank you. His footsteps crossed the porch and went down the steps. She went back to folding laundry. She muted the television about 20 minutes later because she thought she had heard something somewhere toward the back of the house. She sat completely still and listened. The house settled. The furnace ticked. Nothing else followed. The furnace ticked. She turned the volume back up and told herself it was nothing. At 9 o'clock, she went into the kitchen to make tea. The kitchen window faces the side yard. A long, narrow strip of grass between the house and a wooden privacy fence. She filled the kettle at the sink and looked out the window without thinking about it. People always look out the window above the sink. It's automatic. He was standing in the side yard. He was completely still in the middle of the grass. Dark jacket, arms at his sides, facing the back of the house, just standing there. It took her a full 2 seconds to understand what she was seeing, because her brain didn't accept it right away. It tried to turn him into something else first. A post, a shadow from the fence, anything that made sense. He was not a shadow. She dropped straight down below the counter without making a decision to do so. She was on her knees, on the kitchen floor with the kettle still in her hand, and she could not pull in a full breath. She pressed her back against the lower cabinets. She reached up to the counter and slid her phone to the edge and brought it down to where she was sitting. She called 911 from the floor. She whispered. She said there was a man standing outside in her yard. She gave her address. She had to look it up in her phone contacts because she had only lived there 2 weeks and didn't have the street name memorized yet. The dispatcher told her to stay inside and stay low and not go near the windows. She stayed on the kitchen floor. She could hear her own breathing. She could feel the cold of the tile through the knees of her jeans. She focused on keeping her breathing steady and quiet. Then she heard footsteps on the back porch. No knock this time, just steps, slow and deliberate, coming across the wooden boards toward the back door. Then the door handle turned. One slow, firm rotation. It stopped. The door held. She had locked it after the man left the front porch. She pressed the phone against her ear so hard that her ear ached. The police arrived 6 minutes after her call. They found him behind the garage. He had not run. He was standing near the back of the property by the alley, and when the officers approached him, he told them he was waiting for a friend. He gave them the name of the woman who had lived in that house before. The officers ran his information and recognized it immediately. He had a documented history of harassment. A restraining order had been filed against him by the previous tenant 8 months earlier. The order had since expired. He had apparently not accepted that she had moved away. The previous tenant was reached by phone. She confirmed she had moved specifically to get away from him. She had not given him her new address. She had told no one connected to him where she had gone. He had come back to the old address because it was the only address he had gone. He had come back to the old address because it was the only address he had. He had knocked at the front door, heard a voice he didn't recognize, and decided to wait outside and watch. He had stood in that side yard for 40 minutes before she saw him at the window. 40 minutes. In the dark, completely still, watching the lights inside the house, watching the shapes move behind the curtains, waiting to understand what had changed and whether that change meant anything for him. She moved out of that house the following month. For a long time after, she didn't tell anyone her new address. She checked every room before sleep. She looked at every window. She tested every one. She tested every one. She still does. I noticed the car on a Wednesday. I didn't think much of it at the time. It was a dark blue sedan, older model, parked on the street directly across from my house. Nothing about that was unusual on its own. My neighborhood is residential, but close enough to a small commercial strip that overflow parking on the street is completely normal. A car sitting there during the week was not something I would typically give a second thought. I registered it and moved on. I live alone in a rented house. It's small and older. The floors creak when the temperature drops, and the side entrance off the parking pad is the one I use almost every day. I have lived there for close to 2 years. I know the street. I know the street. I know which vehicles belong to which neighbors, not because I pay close attention on purpose, but because you absorb that kind of information naturally when you come and go from the same place every day. Your brain builds a map of what belongs. It flags what doesn't. The blue sedan did not belong to anyone I recognized. On Thursday, I noticed it again, the same spot. I walked past it when I came back from the grocery store. The windows were fogged slightly on the inside, the kind of fog that comes from someone breathing inside a closed car not long before. I glanced at the plates. I didn't write them down. I kept walking and told myself it was nothing. Friday morning, I looked out my front window while drinking my first cup of coffee and the car was still there. My stomach did something uncomfortable then. Not panic, just a small, low signal. The kind your body sends before your brain catches up. 3 mornings, same spot, same car. I talked myself out of it by 8 o'clock. There are 100 reasons a car sits on a street for a few days. Mechanical problems, someone who parked there before a trip and got a ride to the airport, a visitor staying with a neighbor. I ran through the list. It was a long list. I finished my coffee and left for work. When I came home Friday evening, the car was there and there was a person sitting in the driver's seat. I stopped on the sidewalk. I looked at the car. The interior was dark. The streetlight hadn't turned on yet. I could see the outline of a head in the front seat. Still, facing forward, not moving. I stood on the sidewalk for a few seconds, and then I walked to my front door and went inside. I used the front door instead of the side entrance because the front door faces the street. Because I wanted to be looking at the car while I went in. I locked the door. I turned off the light in the front room. I stood back far enough from the window that I could see out, but couldn't be seen from outside. The person in the car did not move. The car did not move. I stood back from that window for 45 minutes and watched the car sit there completely still under the streetlight with a person in the driver's seat who did nothing but face forward and wait. I called my neighbor who lives across the alley, an older man I had gotten friendly with over the past year or so. I told him about the car. He said he had noticed it most of the week too. He said he thought about mentioning it, but figured it belonged to someone in the apartment building around the corner. Hearing that someone else had seen it made me feel slightly better, only slightly. On Saturday morning, the car was gone. I let myself relax. I told myself relax. I told myself it was over, and whatever it had been, it meant nothing. I had a quiet day. I watched football. I did laundry. I went to bed early. I know the exact time because I looked at my phone the moment my eyes opened. There was no noise that I could point to as the cause. I was just suddenly completely awake. Eyes open, completely alert, lying flat in the dark. I listened. The house was quiet. Wind outside against the windows. Down the street, a dog barked twice and stopped. Normal sounds. The kind of sounds that house made every night. I was about to close my eyes again when I heard the side door. Not a knock. Not a slam. A soft, careful sound. A handle being tested slowly. Pressure applied and then eased off. Once, then again. The kind of movement that is trying very hard not to make noise while still finding out whether something is locked. I sat up in bed. The side entrance leads into the utility room. The utility room connects to the kitchen. It is 2 rooms away from where I was sitting. The front door is visible from my bedroom doorway if the door is open. My door was open. I did not move. I did not make a single sound. The handle tested again. Firmer this time. I could hear the latch under pressure. A small, tight click. The door held. I had locked it after coming inside that evening. My phone was already in my hand. I do not remember picking it up. I called 911 and kept my voice just above a whisper. I said someone was trying to get in through my side door. I said I was alone. I gave my address. My voice came out completely flat, which surprised me. I was not calm, but my voice sounded like I was ordering something at a counter. The dispatcher stayed on the line. She asked if I could get to a room with a lock. My bathroom locks from the inside. I moved through the dark hallway without turning on any lights, stepping around the one spot in the floor I knew would creak. I eased the bathroom door shut behind me. I pressed the lock. I sat down on the closed toilet lid in total darkness with the phone against my ear. 4 minutes. The dispatcher told me units were 4 minutes out. I counted seconds. I got somewhere past 140 before I heard the engines pull up outside. The officers checked the perimeter first, then knocked at the front. I came out of the bathroom and let them in. They checked every room. They checked a side door. It was still locked, but the exterior handle had fresh marks on the metal. The door frame around the latch had faint pressure marks that one of the officers pointed out with his flashlight. He said someone had worked that handle for several minutes, trying different angles, checking for give. On the street out front, the blue sedan was parked again, about a quarter block up from where it usually sat. A slightly different spot this time. It was empty when the officers approached it. They ran the plates. The registered owner had an address in a town about 40 miles away. No clear connection to anyone in my neighborhood. No active warrants. They photographed it, logged it, and told me to call immediately if I saw it again. They asked if I had any reason to believe I was being specifically targeted. I didn't have an answer. The car was gone by morning. It never came back. I had a camera installed on the side entrance the following week. I upgraded the lock to a heavy deadbolt. I put motion lights on every corner of the house. They didn't get in. I don't know who they were. I don't know what they wanted. What I do know is that they sat across from my house for at least 5 days before they came to the door. 5 days of watching the lights, watching the times I left and came back, learning my routine from behind a fogged windshield in January cold, building a picture of my life from a safe distance before they ever decided to move. That is what I cannot let go of. Not the handle turning at 3 in the morning. That part almost felt simple by comparison. What gets me is the planning behind it, the patience. Sitting out there day after day in the cold, coming back every morning, staying long enough to learn something, and then leaving before anyone made a call. They had a plan. They had done their work before I even knew I was being watched. The only thing that stopped them was a lock I happened to remember to turn.